is mandated to ensure that schools are safe for successful learning and teaching to take place. Does the Basic Education Department have the capacity to deal with current challenges? Is the department losing the fight against sexual abuse in schools? When is the best age to start teaching children about matters relating to sex? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Tsedu. Safety of learners at schools has come under the spotlight. This after two 7-year-old girls were allegedly sexually assaulted by 6 boys. The suspects, aged between 7 and 10, have been suspended from school while the girls are receiving counselling. The Gauteng Education MEC, Panyaza Lesufi, has reacted with shock to the incident that happened at a primary school in Ekurhuleni, although it wasn't the first this year. My guest today, Nombulelo Nyatela, who is the spokesperson of Equal Education, and joining us from our Pretoria studios should be Benedict Palani, who is Gauteng's Provincial Secretary for the Congress of South African Students, COSAS. And welcome to the show. But before we go into today's program, let's take a look at this clip.
I'm speechless, man. What has happened here is something that you don't expect at the primary school. And if you check the ages of these young ones, they're very young, I mean, between 8 and 10, to be accused of sexual assault. It's a serious offense. So I've met with both families now. We are at peace for now. That does allow the law to take its own course. What complicates the process is that these families are related, and that makes the situation very difficult. But we've set out the process. We'll meet with the parents. We've asked our social workers to intervene immediately. And beyond that, we'll convene with other parents. I'm certain it's a very bad trend. If you check that last month, I had 3 kids under the age of 10 that were also sexually assaulted by other boys. So it means we need to overhaul all our protocols relating to managing this kind of issues. We need to refocus and really prevent this trend. And I'm willing to work with the NGOs and other organizations to assist us to deal with these matters.
A reminder that this is a live program, and therefore you can call us and air your views on the numbers on screen, 089-110-4210. Our Twitter handle at QuestionTime24. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Well, you are an NGO, and the MEC says he's willing to engage with NGOs and all that. I guess he's been doing that. But is the education sector in a crisis?
I think the term crisis is used far too loosely. I think that we have many problems, many challenges in the Department of in the education sector, but I think we certainly, all of us are making incredible strides. That includes the department and that includes NGOs like ourselves, Equal Education. But I think that increasingly we are seeing community members taking part and wanting to be part of their children's educational process. And so there's definitely an uprising by everyone in the country saying that education is important, we need to do something. So, and I think when there is that, then there's not yet a crisis because people want to do something about the challenges or the problems we see in the basic education sector.
But it is not a normal environment where you're going to find children at primary school experiencing rape. It is another thing, if they were saying, the kids were raped by secondary pupils or, adults elsewhere. But if it's happening, amongst themselves as peers, then
research by Action Aid actually tells us that they looked at learners in Gauteng and in Limpopo. They surveyed them and asked them who are usually the perpetrators against you young ladies in schools. And 44% of these girls said that it was actually their peers. So it's more common than we think. Most of the, and much less, far less, I think about 3% of that was the educators. So often we think it's actually the much older people, but the age groups are quite closer. That's the first thing. The second thing is that it's a societal issue, and we must not isolate schools from the societies in which they exist in. So our pupils, our learners are actually products of their societies. And more research that came out of the Commission of Inquiry into policing in Khayelitsha, one of the ladies who gave evidence actually said that because these kids are prone to experiencing violence at home in their communities, and they see that every day, they're not like other kids in schools. So, for example, we wouldn't be surprised that this happens mainly in township schools, in rural schools, because of the communities they exist in. Because schools are microcosms of communities, so we can't isolate the school. We can't just say, why is it the school? Certainly, it's also an issue of school security. There is that issue as well, but it's very one-dimensional to look at it that way.
Okay, and I need to remind our viewers that in fact we had invited both the National Department of Basic Education and the Gauteng Department of Education, who both declined the invitation, or they did not see it fit to participate in today's discussion. However, the show goes on indeed. Now, you look at this particular problem which we've just dealt with. You have the racism issue, which has been, reported about. You have the road deport issue, which is, well, there's racism in there, but and other things. You have this SGBs that have been spending money willy-nilly, and all of a sudden there seem to be a whole lot more than what we had thought was the case. Does the department have the capacity to deal with this?
The department definitely has the capacity. I think the real question is there political will to deal with it speedily, immediately, and effectively? And I think that has been obviously our biggest concern, and why we have been so big at doing our advocacy work around this issue of basic education, is because we felt that things do tend to move slowly sometimes. There's definitely capacity. I mean, they have the means, they know what must happen. And I think that we've been increasingly impressed with, for example, how MEC Panyaza Lesufi has been responding to things on time. So the response time has been good. But of course, more needs to be done. And these issues are not new. And nor are they just happening this year for the first time. In our schools, really, we have many challenges.
And who do we put the blame on here? Is it parents, or the department, the educators, SGBs, yourselves as stakeholders?
Well, I mean, because education is such a societal matter and a broad matter, to put blame on just one person would be very unfair. It's very burdensome. But everyone has a role to play, and if parents are not standing for SGBs, then they are a problem. They should be standing for SGBs and participating in their school governing process. If the department is not doing their job, then yes, they are also a problem, because they are the custodians of the education system in South Africa. If NGOs are not playing the role that they're supposed to play in terms of holding government accountable and improving democracy, then they are also a problem. So everyone has a role to play. There's not one single person. I think all of us really need to work more collectively together to sort of tease out the problems. Things like what happened in Rudaput, and things like particularly what happened in the school in Vosloorus can really be avoided if we were more proactive about matters.
But you guys, and by you guys I mean NGOs, the civil society, except for political organizations here, because at least they speak now and then. But yourselves as NGOs, you sometimes really hold back. I don't know whether it's because the department funds you or what. NGOs don't speak as loud as they're supposed to on these issues.
We do not hold back. Equal education does not hold back. We have never held back. We are a very proactive organization. We have been to court numerous times taking the department. We have marched, we have petitioned, we have had hunger strikes. We have slept outside of Parliament. We have written letters to the Minister. We've done a number of things to get things done in the education sector. We have the norms and standards for school infrastructure, which say things like there should be fences at school for school security because of what we have done. So we have never held back. We are not funded by the Department of Basic Education, unfortunately. In fact, a lot of our funding comes from ordinary community members who want to see us do our work, who want to see us continue doing our work.
I want you to tell us what you're doing about the sanitation challenges that are facing schools, but only after the break. When we return, we'll be joined by COSAS from our Pretoria studios, and we'll be taking your calls, 089-110-4210. What do you think of the state of education in South Africa, in Gauteng? What is happening in Roodepoort? We'd love to hear from parents in Roodepoort. What is the latest? 48 hours has come and gone. We don't know where the report is. And by the way, we had invited both the Department of Education in Gauteng and the National Department of Basic Education, who both turned down the invite. This question time.
In Africa, mobile devices are tools to make payments, browse the internet, and keep governments in check with social media forums.
It's given an average African too much power in their hands.
And tech creativity is solving some of the continent's problems.
Everything is internet driven.
And on Network, we tell you how Africans are using technology and social media in their everyday lives.
Join Siphumelele Zondi on Network every Sunday at 19:30 CAT.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time, and today we're talking education. My guest, Nombulelo Nyathela, is the spokesperson of Equal Education, and from our Pretoria studios, we now have Benedict Palani, who is Gauteng's Provincial Secretary of COSAS, the Congress of South African Students. Mr. Palani, welcome to Question Time, and let me also remind our viewers that they can call in and give their views on the subject today. 089-110-4210 is the number to dial. 089-110-4210. Our Twitter handle at Question Time 24. We had invited both the National Department of Education and Gauteng Education Department. They did not pitch. COSAS, are you happy with how things are in the education sector here in the province?
To start with, thanks, man, and for hosting us in your studios. But either way, we are not happy with how things are being ran in the Gauteng education. You would know that we have been facing challenges as students, especially in Gauteng. Now, it makes it worse with the Roodepoort school that it seems like we are failing and the Department of Education is not doing anything about the issue. Now, it becomes a challenge to each and every student who schools in Roodepoort Primary School that you go to school in the morning, you find gates closed, and you find people chanting outside. Now, you do not have understanding, is this a political platform for people to fight their personal gains through our education in the province, or we're supposed to make sure that the province and its state of education it is in a good condition, okay, and the MEC must make sure that everything that takes place in the school, he must be the first person to know what is exactly happening.
Yep. Okay, we've got Mamudisani in Orange Farm. Welcome to Question Time.
Hi, Lekai. Yes, ntate kore ne ke batla o bua ka taba ya this sexual harassment ya bana bana. Ntho e mo rona ntate rona batswadi. Re le mo mikhukhung ena. O robala le bana teng mo. O bulata boyfriend o tlo robala le yona mo o nwele bojwala kapa weditse eng a o hlompho re bana ki ba teng mo. With unprotected nuts mo pila bana they take it from there and then you wanna yetsa ko skolong. Ntho e mo hae a re tlhokeleng go blame ditishera le bomang. Ntho e ko rona batswadi.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank
you, dear.
All righty. Mamam Disani, of course, saying there that the problem lies with the parents. The sexual harassment of pupils at schools wouldn't happen if parents were actually behaving themselves sexually at home and not bringing in boyfriends. I don't know if girlfriends as well. But yeah, not bringing in partners and managing their behavior in a better way. That would also contribute to the behavior of learners and pupils. But Kosas, what more was Panyaza supposed to have done? He launched an investigation, he gave them time, he said, you know, he brought in people like Date Chikane and all that to try and help resolve that problem. I mean, if it is indeed a racial problem, really, what can an MEC do?
Thanks. Now, it is a good move that has been done by the MEC for appointing the likes of Reverend Chikani to intervene on this issue. But it becomes a disappointment and a very, very big disappointment to the community of Rudeport and community of Gauteng. If we have been waiting for the report since Saturday when it was supposed to be compiled, but now the report, we have not heard anything on it. Now it becomes a challenge as to we do not know now what are the developments that are going to transpire moving forward. Now you would see each and every day that parents of Rudeport or community of Rudeport goes to the school, chant on the gates. Now you find also
well, they also fight.
Another. Yeah, you also find that there's an EFF that is now involved on an issue of education, of which is this thing. It was not supposed to be a political platform for other people. Now, what must happen is that we saying that the EFF must stop doing what they are doing and let the MEC do his own job. He was appointed as an MEC of education in Gauteng to champion the issues of students, not to give oppositions loopholes to fight their own factional battles within our schools. We do not want these things a situation whereby you would find that now even the Democratic Alliance is coming and fighting against the assisting the community to fight the battle. You would remember last week, it was on Friday, if not mistaken, people were shot with rubber bullets due to the issue of protesting, saying that they do not want their children to go to other schools because they do not know where exactly are those schools. Now, we are saying, as COSAS, parents must leave these children, must leave our young brothers and sisters, get on those buses that are provided by the government to go and attend their classes in these other schools. It is not like they're going outside the province. It is not like they're going to be taught by other people. Now, that is where the racial issue starts or come from. If you have a parent who says that she doesn't know the school that is near the area, then that means there's a problem about those parents.
All right, hold it there. Hold it there. We need to take a call from Tswani. Eunice, welcome to Question Time.
Hi, Mutumbo. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for the call, Eunice.
Thanks for this opportunity. I'll just answer this globally. As far as a lot of things in my country, things are not right. And then that automatically affects the kids. As adults, we are failing. We cannot foresee things. We cannot prevent things, and children find themselves in our messes. It's global, especially even in the work area. I mean, what you see at work tells you how a person is living at home, how he's reflecting to the children. The second thing is, I've seen sometimes people fighting for multiracial, like this one doesn't want to take blacks. But what are we doing as blacks within ourselves, making our own schools to prove that we are quality? When the whites start their thing, we are fighting for it. What is it that we are doing from our side within ourselves? Are we incapable?
Okay, thanks very much. Indeed, a very good question. Well, I think you were trying to answer it earlier that I mean, as an NGO or civil society, you are trying to do something. Some of the visuals that we were showing there earlier speak to the question of safety and security in the schools. How rife is that problem?
I think in certain instances it's more rife than in others, and sometimes it speaks to just basic things like school infrastructure. So, for example, a school that doesn't have a fence would be an unsafe school. The teachers don't feel safe, nor do the learners. So that is that becomes an infrastructural problem. Earlier last year, we intervened in a case of Manenberg schools, where these schools are located right in the middle of gang violence territories, and often the learners were, seeing bullets being fired across their schools, and learners would come into schools with weapons because they come from these communities that have these gangs. And this would happen often, and so we had to intervene and ask that the Department of Basic Education in the Western Cape sort of give police patrols in the area. So it's very clear that it is in our working class communities that where the problem is. For example, if you go to schools in affluent suburbs, you might even find that they have nice fences and gates, but they might not even lock the gates sometimes because it's a safe area. But our township schools, our rural schools really face harsher problems than other areas. And so, so things like school infrastructure can be implemented more speedily. Those are things we shouldn't wait for. We should just have fences in our schools, just as a start to trying to fix the security problems.
Dougie, you are in the Val.
Are you well?
Dougie?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Dougie.
I was listening to Eunice's question.
Yes.
Her question.
Hey, we seem to be having a problem with Dougie's line there. Dougie, can you hear us? No, we seem to have lost him there. Kosas, in as far as safety and security is concerned, what are you doing as a student organization to ensure that learners are safe in schools?
Well, Mpo, you would know, with partnering with the MEC of Education in Gauteng, we have run several programs, including the one that we have named Learn Without Fear. Now what the programs that we're having is to say it's that we want proper securities in our schools. You would know that in our schools that we are only given CPFs, which is they cannot even perform their duties. They bring us one old lady who's 50 or 60 years old in age. Now that person cannot do anything. That is not security either way. But now you find that when you go into that school, before even going to the school, you go to the MEC's office, you are searched by 10 people, or you would have to go and sign in before you could go and see him. And there should be a person from his office to come and fetch you down there. Now we're saying, why can't some of these professional security companies, why can't they be hired in our own high schools so that we can be safe? we cannot afford to have one CPF and at the gates who's just having a book. When you come into the school, they just take your name, your numbers, and your registration card number, and that's it. You go into the school, they murder students, they bully teachers, and they do all these funny things. That is why at the end of the day we are left with this problem of drugs in our schools and wayport. It becomes a challenge. It becomes a challenge also for us as students to feel safe in schools. Now, the program of Learn Without Fear, it explains clear that students need to be safe as much as prisoners are highly guarded by more than 10 correctional service personnel securities in a jail.
All right, Benedict, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having us.
You came, unlike the Department of Education nationally and in Gauteng, whom, when we invited, they decided not to take part. But that was question time for today. A big thank you to my guests and to you for watching the show. Let's meet again tomorrow, where we will be talking with the Israeli ambassador, the ambassador of the State of Israel, tomorrow right here on Question Time. Have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.